So today we're going to be talking about community and environment. And of course, before we get into that topic, I just want to name, we've decided to tackle community, which is a huge project, I think, even for us, right? Yeah. So there's so many facets, so many sub categories, maybe even within community. So this is going to be one of those topics where we're going to have probably several episodes on this, and we may even come back to it at a later date if we find out or see another one that we want to do. But today we're going to be focusing on community and environment. So, just kind of that definition of environment is going to be that physical space, whether it's natural or man-made, and how we curate or craft community within our physical environment more so. Yeah. Okay. So,
and maybe how that environment either impacts community in a positive or a negative way, because I think both can be true.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So real quickly, something that I wanted to do was just kind of go over the definition of community. There's two main definitions. I'm sure there's probably
so many.
Yeah. So many, and probably subjective, but just a quick Google search is what this came up with. So there's the definition of, it's a group of people living in the same space or having a particular characteristic in common. Or the second definition is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. So one of them feels more on the emotional side, looking at what we share, what we have in common. One of them is more of the physical, we're living in the same place, we're living in this community together. So they're going to have a particular characteristic, such as we all live on Dogwood Lane, something like that. So the definition that I think we're probably going to focus more on in this episode is going to be the one talking about the physical environment. We're going to be talking about the groups of people living in that same space together. So that's going to be this episode. Yeah. So with that, I think first off, maybe to just kind of get us into the groove is talking about the history of community, right? And the history of environment, because as we all know, that's changed drastically. Yeah. Our environment does not look the same as it did thousands of years ago. And with that, our community and style of community has changed too. So,
yeah. Even when you're just like describing that definition, it just reminded me of being a kiddo in my childhood home, and even how that like space has changed. Like if I go back and imagine what that home looks and feels like, I think you were saying, people living in the same space, that feeling of fellowship. So I am kind of curious. If you guys are open, I think it'd be cool to hear like what that feeling of your family homes was like and how it's changed, or if it has changed.
I'm probably going to be maybe an oddball out here. My family home, the physical environment of it hasn't changed much. I was born in the same home, lived in the same home my entire life until I moved out for college. So that physical space for me, that environment was very consistent growing up.
Wow. I would love to imagine being in the same space, having all those memories stay in one place. Mm-hmm. What about you?
Yeah, I think actually something interesting for me is I don't think community in my mind has ever been tied to a physical space, because I've moved so much. So it was never about the home. It was about the feeling, the more emotional side. It was never about the physical things. It was about the feeling that I get in that togetherness within the community, because I've had so many different homes and I've lived in so many different places. And I think for me, I was never tied to a house, because we moved probably every 4 to 6 years.
So that physical environment, would you say the lack of stability in your physical environment, did that increase or decrease connection or community?
I know. I've always thought about that. And I think no, yes and no, probably. I feel like that's a hard one for me to answer. No, because I felt very connected to my family, an extended family as well. Even though we were moving, I felt like I had that connection of cousins and traditions and things like that. So I think it didn't impact that feeling of community, but my community did change because my environment changed as well. So
going from Philly to the south, going more south, it's such a huge difference. Or going from Illinois to Tennessee, which is it's wild. Even just being a town over can be so different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even going from Knoxville to Kingsport was a very big difference, and it's an hour and 45 minutes, and it was very, very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes me think of like home is where the heart is. It's not always a physical place.
Yeah.
It's like the humans and like that feeling. Because I know you started talking about like the history of community, and when I think about tribal living, I think of like nomadic tribes where there was a time that we did not have one home. Our childhood home we lived in, we were constantly traveling to survive. We were constantly traveling depending on the weather and the season.
Yeah.
And I like could not imagine living that kind of life. You're constantly moving.
In your physical environment, even though you are constantly moving, though, because I'm thinking way back, right?
Yeah.
Humans could only move around so much that it wasn't, these tribes weren't living their winters in a tropical area.
Yeah.
And then suddenly in the summers, they're going to, a cool, like Michigan.
There was no like snow bunnies back then.
Right. So, I'm thinking even that transition, those movements within tribal living, you weren't stagnant, of course.
Yeah.
But your geographical environment didn't change too much.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was still changing.
Yes, and this might sound silly, but like I love my childhood bed. Like I am connected to that. And
Do you still have it?
My parents still have the mattress.
I love that.
My fiance did not like the mattress, so
I mattress, like the original mattress,
like the mattress. Like it was a nice.
I don't even want to know how brown and crusty that thing is.
I think it was well taken care of. No, I don't think it's gross. They had a protector. Like
me and you are not the same.
No,
my mattress.
I do think I have like tied to like my mom always decorated our home in the way that things felt really homey and comfortable, and like. I think now too, like I have my childhood furniture in my house now, which I feel really connected to. Like this is a couch I grew up sitting on, and my dad sat in this leather chair and watched TV, and that was his chair in the house. Yeah. So there was still some like physical stuff that always came with us and created my environment, like the inside of our home. Yeah. The home was different, where we lived was different, but the things that like filled our home weren't.
Yes, those core pieces.
Yeah, like. Yeah. I have my grandfather's kitchen table that we ate. It was his dining room table, and we ate Thanksgiving dinner every year at it. And like, I feel very connected to that. And there's so many memories at that table, and it can come with me. So I feel like they still probably packed up like their tents or the blanket that they slept on, and they brought their horses and all their things with them. So like, we still do have, I guess, that like physical connection, even if like our like environment, the town, the area we live in is changing. So I think that is something I feel connected to, but I don't have like a home that like stayed in the, that would always stay the same.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
And I'm really curious to see if there's been research done on sentimental value of physical things, because back then in tribes, if you weren't connected to your tribe, you didn't survive, right? Got cooked or you died or whatever. They were too tired.
They cooked you up over the fire that night.
Right. Excommunicated. That used to be a huge punishment. Excommunication.
Wow.
Right? Yes. Because you couldn't survive without them. You were thrown out into the wilderness and good luck. So I think that's also a big part too. But I wonder how much of our, we think of, and hoarders is an extreme example of that. But you think of our value that we assign to physical objects. I wonder if even that stems from years of tribal living where we had to pack those up and move those with us because that's how we survived. Like your mattress that you still have from you.
It was the most comfortable mattress I've ever slept on. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Well, I'm impressed actually.
One of those most like consistent parts. What did your guys' bedrooms look like? Can you imagine your childhood? Well, you might have the exact same bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, other than paint. We got a new mattress and a new bed because I grew up in bunk beds.
Yeah, okay.
That was fun.
That is fun. Do you have a strong picture of your childhood bedroom?
We grew up like an hour or less away from an IKEA. So I have like a lot of IKEA for when I go to the IKEA store and I'm looking around. A lot of it reminds me of my like childhood home. Like our beds were IKEA beds, and a lot of our like furniture and tables, we were obsessed with IKEA. We would go there like IKEA. It's so every week we would go get the meatballs, we would go and eat, we would go on an adventure in the IKEA. So I even feel like that reminds me of home as well in like a very strange way.
I kind of said my piece on my bed is
your bunk beds.
Yeah, it's very similar to what it was. I And see, that also brings back, you know, because Olivia, you're talking about moving around, and it sounds like me and you, Amanda, were pretty stable growing up. I wonder what, and I'm curious, okay, I'm just thinking here, but I wonder what it was like to transition from dynamic living in the sense of we're constantly moving, we're constantly packing those things up and shifting, to kind of ushering in that era of stationary living.
Yes.
At the turn, you know, because and vaguely, now I'm not a history buff, right? But I'm thinking about how we learned about how agriculture and farming and cattle, right, that allowed people to stay in one place because they no longer needed to move for resources.
Yeah.
So I wonder what that would be like to live through that shift of, this is my whole life. We've always moved. We've always needed to hunt down resources. Oh, and now we're growing crops and cattle, and my tent is going to stay here for the rest of my life.
I mean, I would think a little, like, I think our bodies get this internal clock of, like, it's time to transition. It's time to move. I always joke with my fiance that, like, every 4 to 5 years, I'm feeling like, what's next? Where are we going next? What's our next move? And it's actually, I think since college, moving so much, I am like pretty consistently thinking about, like, when's the next time we're going to have to pack up. And we're renting a house right now. So, like, the plan is not to be there forever. So, like, I do know there's another move. So I wonder how, like, unsettling that was. Like, I have this clock of, like, we're transitioning. I know that, like, when this comes, it's time for us to move. It's time for us to transition. And now we're just staying. We don't have to transition.
Yeah.
We don't have to move.
Do you think that first, like, summer to winter where they did move, everyone is just panicking?
Yeah, like,
oh my gosh, what if we die? What if this is
what
it?
are we
Because you didn't
doing?
move?
It's time to transition.
Yep, it's too late. We're stuck here.
I just think about a bunch of restlessness. Like, these humans must have been very restless.
Yeah, just like pacing. But yeah. And something else that brings up for me is, you know, in tribes, you had to move to get access to resources to survive, right?
Yeah.
And you were very connected to that tribe. And then they went to the stationary living. Okay, now we can stay in one spot. We can farm the ground. We can do all the things. I'm wondering, because they also were getting their needs met within a very small circle, right? And so I'm curious how much connection was happening in between tribes, right?
Yeah, or the danger, like your tribe, like another tribe is dangerous, and we want to protect ourselves, or even like automatically assume they're not in our tribe, that they are not safe or unknown.
Right, and if we tie it back to physical environment, if one tribe settles in the ideal physical environment, would that create connection with other tribes, or would that create hostility? Because now we want what you've got.
It reminds me of like Animal Planet, when it's like the lone wolf walks in, will they accept the wolf into their clan?
Think about because think about, golly, I don't know, you know, think about jealousy, or think about, well, they have the resource of food and we need that. And so we're going to our tribe, instead of connecting with you guys, instead of growing, you know, how much of that mentality do we still carry in today's physical environments? How much are we like, mine, versus, no, we can welcome anyone into this physical environment? How possessive are we of physical environments, would you guys say?
I think pretty possessive.
Yeah.
Until we feel like we have enough resources to share, which I'm sure initially, I don't know how long the dirt's going to be good enough for us to go grow crops. I don't know how our season's going to go. Are we going to have enough crops to even provide for our own tribe? And now there's this new tribe here that's going to want to live on the land too. Like, that's obviously I have no clue what this looked like or felt like for these people, but I'm sure initially there is that hostility.
Why don't you know that?
You're not a time traveler?
No, and history really isn't my
We're not that far removed, okay? We're not
either.
Did you guys like Little House on the Prairie when you were growing up? Did you read those books?
Yeah, in like the 3rd grade.
I'm like remembering a memory. I don't know if it's from those books or it's just that vibe, or like those old timey movies of like they're bunkered down and it's snowing outside and they like, we don't think we collected enough wood for the season, and like the wood stove is burning. Yeah. Like, I'm just imagining you would be protective. I gotta survive. I can't give you more wood. This is all I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very protective of resources.
And then I wonder too if it's like, oh great, we have more strong men to carry wood. Like, please come help us chop down the wood,
that's a
right?
great
Like, if we have
point.
enough trees,
Yes.
then there's no scarcity of that. So then I'm like, yes, please come help. Please come help me chop down this wood. We've got 3 strong guys that know how to, use an axe right now. It seems like you guys have 4. Please come help us do that. So I think it's just, I think it depends. But I think if there's enough resources to go around, you want more people to help maximize those resources would be my thought. If it feels like there's a scarcity of resources, then I'm going to hold on and protect them and be more protective of them and less willing to share. But if there's enough of the resources, enough of the environment is sustainable for all of us, then I want all of you here and we can do more with more people.
But do we? Do we really want? I mean, if our environment sustains us, do we really want to invite others into that could jeopardize that environment?
You're speaking for parts of the world right now where we feel like it is safer to like hunker down and to lock down. And I feel like we've talked about this in a previous episode, like in a way of like how I think I have a question for viewers and a question for you guys. Like, I think depending on where we live, our community can be very closed off. Like a new person joins a club, a new person joins a neighborhood or a school, and they react very differently to someone who is new. So I wonder if it really depends on the area.
And maybe
as well
how scarce they think something is within their environment. Kind of going back to that supply demand. Can my environment support these outsiders, if you will, right? But at what point do we prioritize that over connection? Because they're humans too.
Yeah.
And, maybe their tribe died, or their, people weren't able to support them in the way that they needed. And so they do have to find that.
How fragile is our community too, though? Because I feel like if you have a stable, for lack of better words, confident, capable community, you're going to be a lot less worried about 2 new people coming. Like, right, like we are stable. 2 new people are not going to cause us off tilt. Yep. But I feel like if you do have a friend group of 3 people and there's already a little bit drama, or 4 people and now we're adding a 5th, oh boy, am I going to be the person left out? Like, are the 2 of them really, you know what I like?
The insecurity.
Yeah, like how stable is our community, right?
Within an environment.
Yeah, within that environment. Yeah, but still our community, and like, are we stable? Do we feel established enough to welcome others into it?
Yeah. Because I think too, with communities and environments, you have to have communities that also recognize what its dwellers what would you call it? Dwellers, livers. That's a body part. The dwellers within that community want. And hear me out, because it's kind of a ramble. But so you have a community that prioritizes connection in the sense of, hey, we've got sidewalks. Hey, we've got public spaces. Hey, we've got these resources, libraries, parks, we've got schools, we've got grocery stores that all exist within our community. That to me is going to say, hey, we prioritize being connected to each other, versus a community that is, we don't have any of that, and good luck, you're on your own, right? Yeah. What's yours is yours, and you defend it, you take care of it, that's it. Okay, if you want to meet your neighbor, sure, but do so at your own risk. You know what I'm saying? How are we? And I think that's also been another transition, right? We went from tribal living, physical environment, finding our needs, finding our resources, to stationary. We have our resources, we have our needs met, but now we've got outsiders coming in. But then eventually, communities and towns started being built, right? And when I say community, I'm talking about that physical space. And as they got bigger and more developed, okay, at some point, you do have to consider.
So are you saying like a community that has a school, grocery store, a public library, all those public spaces would be more likely to invite new people in because they value connection? Versus like a society where it's like, I have my land and my family lives off our land. We're not giving strawberries to Amanda and blueberries to Courtney for them to give us some pumpkins and potatoes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like we get ready for the year and we put all our crops and we live off our, do you think they're less likely to ask, like, to allow someone else to come into their community?
See, and I don't know, because think about it. If you're living off your land and you've got what's yours and someone buys the land next to you, I'm almost thinking if you apply the same standards to everyone else that you do yourself, and we know that's pretty rare, I think. Okay, great. They now have their piece of land that is theirs. I don't care that they've moved in.
But they have like a dog that barks all the time, and
Yeah.
they're trying to chop down the trees like that's between our land, and now they can see in my backyard, and I don't want them, like, they're not chopping those trees down. Like, this is I don't want them seeing in my backyard. Right. And like, because are they less likely to like invite and welcome, or are those people more likely to be in conflict, maybe because we're not working towards the same thing. We don't have shared spaces that we enjoy connecting in together. So now everything you do just kind of irks me if it, impacts me in any way that I don't feel is positive.
Yeah. And I think something that we've kind of danced around is like the categories, right? So urban, suburban, rural.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of naming that, small communities versus large communities. All of those consist of very different environments. I saw this thing, and I'm going to misquote it, and I wish I could source it, but I think it was just a video on social media that I saw. But it said, if you can walk outside and pee off your porch and no one sees you, that's considered rural living.
Okay.
If you can walk outside, pee on your porch, and 5 people see you and chastise you, that's suburban living. And then if you walk outside and you pee on your porch and 20 other people join you in doing the same thing, that's urban living. Okay. So now I'm aware that within that quote, there exists some very big stereotypes.
Yes.
Right. Oh. And I'll name that. Okay. So, but that's not really what I'm getting at. But what I am getting at is, urban, you've got 20 different people that see you and they may all join in doing the same thing that you're doing. Suburban, you might have people kind of have some different maybe opinions or different ideas, but they're existing in the space close enough that they still see you. And then rural, no one cares what you're doing because, well, no one's seeing what you're doing and you're by yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're rural enough. And I just thought that quote kind of captured the different types of maybe modern communities that we see, types of modern environments that we see a lot of that reoccur, right? We know that urban environments are a thing. We know that suburban environments are a thing. What are your guys' thoughts, I guess, maybe on those different types of modern communities now, physically, the environment?
After talking about like our past 2 little pieces, it's making me think of our first stage of development, which is trust versus mistrust. Because we keep saying, we're like doing this ebb and flow of we're connected and we're tribal, we're nomadic, we are going with, nature, we're going with whatever our food sources and where we need to go and find them. And now we're settling down and we're hunkering down and we're trying to decide, how do we share? Do we connect with our neighbor that just moved next to us? So I almost feel like that is a component of this too, of like the level of safety you feel in that space as well.
In your physical environment?
Yeah. Like I'm thinking a lot about safety right now, and that's our first need. Like we are constantly determining, am I safe? Am I safe if I reach out to my neighbor to say I want to trade something? Is it safer to just stick with my family because I know that we're safe? Because the unknown is always going to be really scary for us, even if it's positive, even if it means we get to grow, we get to have more resources. So I don't know if that really answered what you were saying, but I've just been thinking a lot about that throughout this conversation.
Yeah, no, and I think it also names the idea that resource sharing, I think, is also a part of our
the words out of my mouth.
Physical environment, right?
Yep.
So, and you would think as humans, we would want more access to resource sharing. And I think that's very evident because if I wanted to buy a papaya or a guava, all I have to do is go to Walmart or literally any grocery store at this point, because access has grown so much in our physical environment, right? Planes, trains, cars, bikes, anything, you name it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have access to food, to Asian food, that I would never knew existed probably, I'd say even maybe, 70 years ago, 70, 60 years ago.
I want to like challenge that because like we have access to all these things, and yet as a people, do we feel safe? Can we go outside and safely feel like we can talk to our neighbors? I don't feel that way. But is it because that's like a part? And I know we're going to talk about culture separate from our topic today, so I think that'll be really interesting. But we can have access to all these things. It can be easy. We can be connected in that way. I can be connected to fruits all across the world, but like in our environments, do we?
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point. How humans treat their physical environment impacts how others feel. Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in the same vein of resource sharing, I'm going to like reference this book a few times, but it's the little book of lykke, which is just the word for happiness in Danish. And something that they talk about is that we don't do as much resource sharing as we used to historically because of individualism and consumerism. So, like, I can just order a hammer off of Amazon and it can get here the next day or within 2 days. But before, I might have to drive 35 minutes to a Tractor Supply to get my hammer. So instead, I'd go knock on my neighbor's door and be like, hey, do you have a hammer I can borrow for today? And they would more than happily, most of the time, and maybe not, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd be like, you're not using my hammer, but like, or like I can order, let's say you have like a really nice, like, barbecue, or like you can smoke like a smoker. But I can buy a really cheap one off of Amazon that might last me 3 uses, but I don't want to inconvenience you to ask you to use your smoker for the weekend. When really it would probably be better just to use your nice smoker that you use all the time, and you have me teach me how to use it, and we could connect over that. And then you could ask me how my barbecue went and if the smoker worked well, right? Like, but I think because of individualism and consumerism, or even as simple as like asking your neighbor, like, hey, can you drive me to the train station or to the airplane? I'm just going to get an Uber. I'm not going to connect with someone else to ask them to help me get there.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question for you guys? Are there things that we're doing in our physical environment that show physically individualism? And here's where I'm going with this. So you're talking about coming over and asking to borrow my smoker. Are there things that I could be doing to my physical environment that would deter you from asking me that? Versus different communities where that is something that's being created physically in that environment. And if so, what? Like, what would scream to you, oh, I am not going up to that person's door. They do not want me.
The, like, fence that wraps all the way around the house with a dog.
Okay. A fence with a dog all the way around.
Yeah. I live in, like, probably one of the more, like, lower income areas of where we live in Knoxville. And I really think about that piece a lot. Not just, like, architecture and not just, like, the resources you need to keep up with your home and to do your landscaping, but also, like, there are very specific things, like, I've noticed that keep people safe. Having that fence all the way around, having a dog, having a sign that says, warning, there is a dangerous loud pup here that will bite you. Like, I think about that a lot. And it makes me sad, like, that we've had to take steps like that to protect ourselves from our environment, like, from our community.
Well, you're protecting your own physical environment from other people that may not treat it the same or value
it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think something that would deter me is a neighbor that we get out of our car at the same time and they'll never look at me. They'll never wave back. I see that they don't want that interaction or that connection. They want that individualism of like, I live here and this is my house and I'm not looking to be a neighbor. To me, that's what that is. If I wave at you and smile 3 or 4 times and you don't reciprocate that acknowledgement, then to me, that just means you want to be left alone. You want privacy. I think, and that is more of a human interaction that you asked about the physical space. And so I think some of those things that people do is like, don't walk on my lawn. People put signs like that, right? Like, don't let your dog on my lawn, which like, also like I want to name, I can understand too. You've worked really hard on your lawn and you don't want my dog peeing. And for whatever reason, they always want to pee or poop on those lawns that have those signs. I don't know if they know about it or like what
don't put that makes it a target
or what that is. I also think of, and this is maybe just like a weird, but like the houses that like leave the front porch light on. Like there's something so homey about that. And I know like in terms of electrical bill and things like that, we want to turn our lights on, but like people who like have lighting, like their lights are on, their home feels welcoming. That is something that invites us in. And like I was reading, I think like a Facebook post, and it was just like someone talking some story about some guy going back to his parents' house and like got to the front driveway and like the front porch light was on, and he was like, what are they doing? That light is so expensive. There's such a more efficient light that they get. But then it's like, but that's like the beacon to get home. Like it's our parents reminding us like the front porch light is always on. You're always welcome in our home. And so I think there's things like that. I think also something about someone decorating their front porch and decorating and having flowers or having a cute little sign that they changed. Like there's just something to be said about that, like what that curates and the welcomeness and the invitation that it does, where someone who's not home, whose lights are always off, I probably wouldn't go knock on their door. I sometimes wonder if even my neighbors live in their houses sometimes because I don't see them. They're not home as often. So probably that.
So that's kind of the one that I was thinking more so of how we decorate our homes, how we style our homes. So, and I think of fences and things like that as kind of a decorative statement too, with more of a purpose behind it, right? So, fences can be made to look aesthetic and pleasing, but they're also sending a message of, this is my property. This is my physical environment.
There's also difference between like because there's things called privacy fences, which like you cannot see through. They're so tall that if I'm standing back there, you can't see my head, versus I have a dog, so I fenced in my backyard, but you can see my dog. You can see me and interact. Our dogs can actually even put their noses through the fence and still interact. There's such a difference in that versus like a privacy fence that I cannot see around. I can't even see what your backyard looks like. You could be growing who knows what in that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
and some of us like to suntan in the nude, so we need a privacy fence, right?
Yeah, that's like such a cool thing to think about. Because it's so weird that you hear someone, like you hear their life, you hear their dog, you might hear them talking, but it's like, I don't ever interact with them. It almost like sends a message of like not feeling safe to me. Of like, I don't know who you are, but I hear your voice all the time, but I can't see you, like being a human. I never talk to you.
And I don't know what you're doing back there. And unfortunately, the unknown creates all these stories. We're filling in the gaps. Oh, what are you doing in your backyard? Or what's going on? Right? Like if people get nosy and start to assume the worst too. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think something about someone having like a front porch swing or front porch chairs tells me like, you put that there because you sit on your front porch. Like if I see you sitting on your front porch and we wave, I might be like, hey, I noticed you have a smoker. Like, could I use it this weekend? Or could you tell me what kind to get is maybe where I would start, unfortunately.
If we wave one time and you come up and ask me for my grill, like,
brave.
What?
That's very individualistic.
It is very individualistic. Like, and what's wrong with your grill? Like, no. I would say though, I think something too that our physical environment suggests is how much we trust or mistrust people.
Yeah. This is like one of my far away challenges, not like for the next few weeks, probably for the next few years, but I love the little food pantries that people build and the libraries that they build like right outside their home, so you can like leave a book and take a book. And I want to build one in my neighborhood so bad. And I think talking probably more about making things welcoming, like showing my community like I see you and let's see each other. Let's like leave a book and you can take a book and take as much food as you need, or leave food you don't need to use or you could get rid of. So I'm really hyped about that.
Yeah. And I think something too that book that I was talking about earlier talks about is like spaces like front gardens and porches are called soft edges. And studies show that streets with soft edges feel safer. Wow. Seeing a front yard with a tree in it, or some flowers, or a front porch with front porch furniture, or seeing people sitting on their front porch creates a sense of safety, and people are more likely to stay in a community longer if they feel safe, is what studies have shown, which to me makes a lot of sense. And so it talks about even just like being out in your front yard more frequently, or out in the front of your house, like within your community, creates more of a welcoming environment. When you drive through a neighborhood and you see people on their front porch and in their front yards, you're able to wave and say hello and interact and connect. And so for people to have the space to be able to do that, though. Like, I didn't have a front porch in our condo, so I didn't really ever see the people because it's a condo. Like, it wasn't something, I didn't really see anyone. I didn't drive by anyone and was able to see their faces. And now I drive through my neighborhood, and the people that sit outside, I know exactly what house they're in. I know exactly what they look at, and I wave and I smile to them. And that does create a feeling of safety to know, like, okay, so-and-so lives over, this is where people are. And
so how we are creating those soft and hard spaces within our environment, right? You're saying that those soft spaces create a sense of security, a sense of safety, and people want to stay in those communities because of how the physical environment is set up to support connection and to support the community, right? So, I think we kind of touched on how fences might be seen as a hard space, right? I'm an individual. This is my physical environment. You're not welcome here, right? No decorations, right? A house that maybe looks unlived in, even though someone does live there, right? Maybe the coldness, whatever that looks like, okay? And so creating soft spaces, creating hard spaces, are we actively doing that? And I think, yes, to agree, we're conscious of that, and we're constantly manipulating our physical environment to whether increase or decrease connection and community. So, and Amanda, I think you had talked a little bit about your neighborhood.
Yeah. It really makes me think of, in my community, I think that it's definitely lower income. Like, I think people who just don't have the resources, the energy, if it's mental or physical health, if it's financial, to always keep up with their spaces. But those little gems in my neighborhood, like, I have a really big community garden that's in my neighborhood. And there's like this level of appreciation I have for it that is way different. Like, they're just these like little gems, or they've opened up a few parks, or I've been totally avoiding my library. And I don't know why, because my library is so cute. I think just that maybe my own stereotype that my area isn't as safe has kind of kept me away from being social in my environment. So
because of the physical environment, the way that it's fostered that maybe mistrust or insecurity.
But like, I see all these like little fonts of hope within it. Like, I love hearing, I live right next to an apartment complex, and I love hearing the kiddos playing outside, and we don't have a lot of big open grassy spaces near my house, and the parks are very limited. But even those like little, like where I get to see a bunch of kiddos playing at a park and they have those spaces, like, it's very hopeful. And I hope, we talk about this, and I hope that we can start creating more spaces like that, like those softer edges. Adding more flowers to like to a sidewalk, having a sidewalk where kiddos can be safe and ride their bike, things like that.
I think as simple as like someone having a welcome mat at their front door, or putting a pot of flowers. Or I think for my condo, we had a big park across the street that had a big loop that you could walk. So that was really, that was really incredible. So, and what a soft edge. So yes, I couldn't see anyone, but I saw people like interacting and connecting and walking like right outside of my condo. I also think that like apartments try to create those soft edges through shared spaces within the apartment living. So we have a community pool or a community gym, or there's some sort of shared space. There's not always, especially when I think of typically lower income apartments, there's not as many shared spaces. There's not those amenities is really the word I'm looking for. And I think like of ways that we can start to create some more soft edges is like, I think about like in the dorm room, like someone who put a whiteboard outside of their door and would write a quote or write their names, and like you knew who was in that room, or they would write silly little messages, or they'd leave a marker there and you could like write something, or like ways to just connect and still feel connected. And I think seeing people's personalities outside, I think that's what our environment creates. The way that I decorate or the way that I curate my space gives some of my personality. So I do think it's more challenging in areas than others, so maybe it's you just have a little side table outside your door that has a little flower on it, something like that, and it creates a little bit of a softer edge. It does.
So something I want to jump back on was your thoughts of shared spaces. And I think that's really important to note in our environment, because I'm thinking even if it's my property, my home, I can still make that a shared space.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of naming some ways to do that, even if it's an apartment building, or I'm thinking dorm. I can absolutely find ways to invite people on to my property to make it a shared space, a shared environment. And I also think, and again, this kind of touches a little bit into culture, which is, I think, maybe our next direction with this, but we tend to value not creating shared environments. Does that make sense? Maybe as a culture? Yeah,
maybe.
and obviously that's something that we can discuss, but I think I see it more now in our modern communities that those shared spaces, I think, used to be huge. And I do see a revival of some sort with the shared spaces, with the shared communities and stuff, and that shared environment where people can come together and exist and share maybe the entertainment or the joy or the resources to some degree. I don't think it'll ever be what it was because there's just so much advancement in access and technology and travel.
And yet we still hold on to things as a society, like the community pool. Like I can just imagine that like image of everyone coming together and just relaxing and just having fun and being playful, and it's a place where kids can play and they're not judged or told to be quiet. Like they can have fun. I have like a little bit of a different direction, I feel like, of going of shared spaces. When I first moved into my house and I wanted to like bring a sense of hopefulness to not just my house, but like to my neighborhood, my community, I have an amusement. So I have like a really long driveway, and I bought a bunch of wildflower seeds and I spread them all throughout, because I feel like another way of thinking about a shared space is also how like nature can benefit from that shared space. So if it's like the bees and the birds and things like that, that was something that was very, very important to me too.
So more of that natural environment as well.
Like giving back to that, because we've taken so much. I think like we've taken so much away from nature, and we're a part of nature. I think that we deserve to have a place here, but that was very important to me. A shared space, not just with humans, but like with other beings of this world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think the shared spaces, unfortunately, I think there's been, because of that consumerism and individualism, there's been less of a need to have these shared spaces, and maybe that's not accurate, but maybe it's this false sense of like, I don't actually need these shared spaces anymore. If I work hard enough, I'll just build my own pool.
Yeah, and people do.
People
build pools now.
People do, and I really think, I am very curious how many community pools still exist.
Yeah.
I think they're actually really tied to a lot of country clubs now. So I joined this, I essentially pay for this membership to go to the pool, to the tennis courts, the golf club, the whole thing. But I feel like this narrative of this individualism, like you get what you earn, has made resource sharing just less of a thing. I worked really hard for this.
Really expensive smoker.
I don't want to share my really expensive smoker with you. I don't trust that you're going to take care of it because you didn't have to buy it. You didn't have to spend the resources on it. So maybe I would really disrespect your smoker. You don't know. I think that comes back to trust.
Because I'm not out anything if I destroy your smoker.
No.
But you are.
Yeah. And so I think there's been less of a need for resource sharing, but I think a way that we can do that in our community is getting curious what resources people do have that they're willing to share, like curating a list with our neighbors of like, who would be willing to walk a dog, who would be willing to check in on my cat, who would be willing, who has some spare tools. I mean, how many people have spare tools that they don't use? Can we create a community tool bag that you don't care if your hammer gets lost? No. Yes.
But does your physical environment allow for that to happen? Where you're at right now, would your physical environment allow that?
I think I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think, interestingly enough, my first thought was like, I need to go to our leasing office to see if that's even something, right? Because all these people are renting, and we have a leasing office who's in charge, and they actually do some events that try to bring our neighborhood together. I've never gone to one, so maybe that's a challenge for me to show up to one of these neighborhood events. But I think my physical environment would allow me to, because we have shared spaces. So I could say, can we leave a toolbox in this shared space that it's just if you donate a tool, you're donating it. It might get lost. It might not be there, but we're giving this for people to use and share with one another. I think we have a bulletin board. So my shared space would allow me to maybe pin something up on there and say, like, what resources or what skills, like, is anyone a good handyman and can come help, which we have also. I can put in a ticket because I rent, but that is a way within our community to create resource sharing. Like, what do you have and what are you willing to offer, right? Too. It's not, there's no expectation. There's no, but if I didn't have a doggo, I'd be more than happy to walk someone's dog once a week for them and just have that interaction and that connection with their animal, right? And then get to know them. I used to babysit a lot in my neighborhood, and that was a big thing. Like, people would ask, is anyone babysitting? And our neighborhood, I guess that environment I lived in, that was like acceptable. People sought that out a lot. But now we have care.com. So we have other ways of finding those needs and resources that I wonder how much we're doing it within our environment. And now we're almost, what is the word I'm looking for? Like, we're sourcing our outsourcing, right? Is that the word I'm looking for? Yeah.
So with that, I'm curious at how if we're outsourcing our needs, right? So maybe we don't need to resource share like what we used to. No, and I think that's a pretty safe statement to make, right? We don't have those needs to share resources. So if that's old and gone, okay, how can we connect to our environment now? So if we have to change how we connect, okay, if we have to change to adapt to our physical environment, and the idea is our physical environment no longer requires us to resource share. Not that we don't want to, but it's just not a need. How can we connect to our environment? And some things that I think we kind of spitballed earlier was the concepts of public pools, of public courts, right? Yeah. Tennis, pickleball. What am I trying to say? Pickleball. Right. Yep. Soccer, I play in a rec soccer league. That has been a huge source of connection. But if the complex wasn't there, if that environment physically didn't exist, I wouldn't have those connections that I have now.
Or you'd find another way.
Or I'd find another
how much
way.
we value it. If we value it enough, we'll find a space.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what are you guys seeing? How are we connecting and creating community through our environment now?
It's really making me think of your neighbor, because I kind of want to challenge myself and viewers and us to think that, what if there's like a lot of assumptions being made that people don't want to connect? Or do we feel like this is just our culture now? That like, oh, they'll think I'm weird if I turn around and I wave. Maybe they don't want me to bother them. So I feel like there's a lot of times I deeply want to connect, but I'm kind of just rolling with the culture of like, well, we don't say hi to each other. I'm just driving past, I'm not going to wave to my neighbor. They're probably doing their own thing. But I don't know, I want to challenge. I think maybe a lot more people could benefit and would enjoy being connected.
So, but how does that tie back into the physical environment?
I guess just how we show up in that physical environment. Even if there's nothing we can change about where we live and the resources we have right now, we can choose how we show up in that environment. Our body language that we give to our neighbor, the act of saying hi. Even if we don't have the resources to like buy a welcome sign or to do and add some decorations to our house or make it more appealing, I think that the thing we do have control over is us. Like our bodies as humans, how we reach out, how we say hi.
Yeah, and maybe that means not waiting an extra 2 minutes to walk out your front door because your neighbor's walking out. Because I think that does happen. Like, that is a shared space, right? If I live across from your apartment and I hear your door open, I'm like, I'm just going to wait 2 more minutes until they get down the stairs or until they're already in the elevator so I don't have to get in that shared space with them. Because those are natural shared spaces, and I think people are trying to avoid more and more being in a shared space with another. So maybe it's being vulnerable enough to put yourself in a shared space and connect, because I think about plenty of times where the elevator's too full and I have just been like, I'll take the stairs or I'll get the next one because I don't want to put myself in that shared space. So I think being vulnerable enough to put ourselves in a shared space. I will avoid putting Hazel in the backyard. If I see that the neighbor and their dog isn't, I'll be like, oh, we'll wait 15 minutes until they go inside and then I'll go outside with Hazel, right? And so this weekend, like, I went outside and it's really a shared space. Yes, we have a fence. Yes, we have very separate backyards. I'm not going to go in their backyard. They're not going to go in mine, but we are in the same space. I can see them. I can hear them. The fence, I could jump over it if I wanted wanted to. Like, it has become more of a shared space for me now. And I was able to go into the backyard and just like, hey, been wanting to introduce myself. I'm Olivia, instead of avoiding that shared space. So I think people being vulnerable enough to go into shared spaces, not avoiding your public library. That is a shared space.
I'm so excited to go.
And that would be a connection to your physical environment.
Yeah.
The physical environment is that there's a library there, but you have to choose to use it.
Yes, you do.
Yes. And I think when we're talking about environment, we're trying to talk about how it curates community. And so shared spaces curate community. But I'm talking about, I avoid the shared space, our clubhouse. Every time they have an event, I don't go to it. I don't go to that shared space. I'm avoiding that way that I could build community. Like, there is shared spaces that curate community, and how often do we really go to them anymore? Or do we look for things that are more private?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that really brings us to a good point of maybe this week's challenge of creating, what were they called?
Shared spaces.
Soft
edges.
Soft edges, right?
Or maybe being vulnerable enough to go to a shared space that you've been too nervous to be a part of.
Yeah.
Because I think both can be true. I think maybe it's like, I want to create a soft edge of just being more available. So I do walk out my front door, or I do sit outside my space in the front area, whatever that is. And that would be creating a soft edge. Or maybe it's like, I want to be vulnerable enough to go to a shared space. I want to go to the tennis courts. And even if someone is playing at the court next to me, I'm still going to go play at the other court.
Tennis.
Or maybe if someone else is playing basketball, I'm not going to leave and go home because other people are. It's a shared space. Can I join the game? Can I be a part of that? How much have we gotten away from being able to connect with one another in shared spaces, and still trying to make them like private and individualized?
So maybe, creating soft edges to create a shared space that also welcomes others. But if that's not necessarily doable, then being mindful and intentional about using shared spaces. Going to
go to them. Yeah. Figure out what shared spaces you have in your local community. I probably couldn't tell you many that I do have around me. Like, I'm new to the area that I'm in. I couldn't tell you where the closest public tennis court is to me. I have no clue.
Yeah. Probably my next kind of just little spiel is, when we say shared spaces, we're talking about publicly accessible spaces, right? Libraries, parks. Yes. Thank you.
The pickleball courts.
Yeah. Just all of the spaces where people can go and use them because it's a shared environment. It's there. It's part of their physical environment. They, live in the community that has it. So, and I'm even thinking about amenities that apartment complexes offer, right? If they've got a shared coffee shop or whatever, then take use of that shared space and be intentional.
Engage with your community. That's what they're there for, to curate community.
I think you guys both talking about resource sharing. I know we don't want to overcomplicate our challenge, but I'm really thinking about that too, because we in essence have the resources because of industrialization and our culture as we know it. But I actually think a lot of people probably really do need help and would be very open to resources from their neighbors, or like, hey, I have an extra bag of chips. Do you want them? Because I think that it's gotten harder to ask for help. But I think that's a huge piece. And I would love for this podcast to continue to push that we can ask each other for help. We can share resources, not just share a space, but share the things that we have. Because people struggle. We go through struggle, and I think we should be there for each other.
Yeah. And I think that's going to tie so nicely into like culture in our next episode, because how much does our culture create a community that wants to help others and wants to be kind and wants to share resources? Because I know we were talking a lot about that, but I think depending on our culture, depends on our beliefs of if I should share my resources with you or not. So I can't wait to like dive more into that. I think that's going to be incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So next week, taking on that second part of community. So get out there, enjoy those shared spaces, find those soft edges, see if you guys notice any in your community too. I know I'm going to be looking out for them this week too.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I know, noticing like where we see them and how it makes us feel. Do we feel safer when we see those things? And then I want to check in. How was our challenge from last week? How did that come?
It was a tough challenge.
That was tough.
It was a tough one.
I think my biggest challenge or biggest perspective was, just kind of the geopolitical environment, if you will, that's happening right now. Listening to just numerous different viewpoints on that whole situation, and not viewpoints all online, right? But these are people that I am walking and talking with daily that differ enough from me that they have different viewpoints and different perspectives on the whole thing. And so that was really interesting, just getting to listen to them and talk to them, and also being mindful of my own thoughts and opinions on it too, so that they didn't feel, I guess, maybe overpowered or belittled or attacked just for having that difference. That was, I enjoyed it. It was tough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it was good for me to also remind myself that I have to be open because I'm sharing those spaces with those people.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I totally agree. It was really difficult because I think I assumed that I would go into it and I could do it. I could hold that space, especially because of like the job that we all do. I can hold that space. I can listen. But it just brought up all my own stuff. I talked to someone really close to me about their like religious and spiritual beliefs, and they were sharing that they were an atheist, and I have differing beliefs from that. And I felt so protective of myself. Like I really wanted to protect and defend what I believed. But then I like was starting to notice this is not about them anymore at all. This is about me almost validating to myself what I believe. And it was really tough in that moment because I was trying to think it through that, and I was trying to be present. So I think it was honestly a great learning lesson. I didn't do it well. I feel like if I could go back, I think I would change a lot of things. But that's what I love about these challenges is it's going to show, wow, that was my stuff, and I was not able to hold space for that.
Yeah, that's a great
And
way
I
to
want
put that.
to. Yeah.
And like what a human experience of like, yes, professionally I can hold space and I can like respect that you have a different opinion, and I can know this is not about me, right? Like that's such a big part of our work. It's not about me. Like I'm here for you. I'm your container. I'm here to support you. But like what a human experience of like, no, my stuff is in this too. And it is coming up and it is part of this. And I think just like what a beautiful human experience of like, I thought I could hold space for this, but it's so different when we're out of our professional minds and like in our own space.
Felt like I was in like a thunderstorm because I was like going in and out and being like, I know I want to just be able to hear you, and I keep finding myself trying to convince you of things. So like luckily because I have that safe relationship with that person, I could kind of speak what was happening in my mind. But I think that's really special too, to have a relationship where this is hard but I can grow with you and you can help me. And then they were struggling equally to me. They were trying to convince me of their side, and it was exactly how those divisive conversations can go. They're like both like the fact we went political and religious, very normal to struggle in those.
Yeah. I think, to be very vulnerable and honest, I was very caught up on still introducing myself to my neighbor. So I did in fact do that.
So we're going back a week.
We're going back a week. It was.
And how was it?
It was great. It was a great experience. I feel like I've noticed he's been out in his backyard more, and so we've had more and more interactions. So I feel like, maybe I opened the door a little bit more too, that like I'm comfortable if we're out here at the same time together in this environment, in this shared space. So it tied really nicely into our episode today. And then I think, while it wasn't intentional, I think wedding planning has just brought up two families coming together who have different beliefs, different values. There's different things that are important. And it's been really interesting, like, and not with anyone specific, but just throughout this whole journey, like what things have been important to me or important to my fiance or important to our families that maybe I didn't like expect. I think everyone's real parts and like their beliefs and what they value is really coming up in this big moment because it's a big life event, right? And so people have all these things that are important to them. And it's been trying to respect that and listen to that while still managing like what is important to me and like what is important for my fiance moving forward into, because it's two families coming together, but us coming together. So what do we want to take from those families and beliefs and values, and what do we not? And it brings up so much like self-doubt, I think, when you are listening and trying to truly understand someone else's beliefs. I think for me, sometimes it's like, ooh, am I like missing something? And I really don't see that, but like that you fully believe. And so it just brings up all those parts of like I want to hear you and I want to protect myself and I don't want to doubt my own beliefs and values while still respecting yours. And so they're tough conversations to have.
And I think that ties into what we were worried about last week, right? We spoke to, you don't have to change your beliefs in order to connect with someone and listen to someone else's viewpoint. Were your religious beliefs changed? No. Were any of your beliefs or values changed in that?
No, but am I going to do something that goes against what I believe in value for someone else I care about? Which this is probably a little bit, I'm getting more complex and convoluted with it. But I think when it comes to this day, like, yes, it's important, but also like, where am I also willing to give and take? Like, is it more
to maintain connection?
Yes, because is it more important to them than it really is to me? Because is it really changing who I am and just valuing who they are? And there has been some scenarios where I'm like, that's really not important to me, but it's not going to hurt me to just respect and value that part of that person and bring it into our day. It's not going to hurt me. I wouldn't have preferred it. I wouldn't have thought about it myself. But do I care about the connection piece with that person enough? Do I care about them enough to respect their beliefs and values enough to tie them into my day?
I think I want to like take back what I said a little bit when I said no, because I think we're speaking to something that just naturally happens. To be in conversation with someone, they are naturally having us challenge the things we believe. We have to back up what we believe and what we say, or be open that it changes parts of us. So I think I said no very strongly, but actually for me to really listen to that person, I think I had to be willing to be open. I think there are parts of me
but that's different than changing.
Yeah, maybe not
Does
changing.
That make sense?
Maybe parts of it could change. Parts there are things we're willing to sacrifice.
Yes, if you're willing to adjust, but it doesn't mean that it has to.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, my geopolitical views did not change. However, I still had to be open to the idea that maybe I do need to change mine, or maybe I'm just blatantly wrong, but that didn't mean that they did. I just had to be open enough to still connect, to let them use that space to also share.
And it's just being open to there's not one right way and there's not one right belief, and just respect. Yeah. So making a lot of decisions of like, I'm going to respect this and I'm going to tie this in. It doesn't mean it's mine. It's really just like, I'm respecting you and yours, and I want to honor that on this day or in this moment. I want to honor what you're saying, like, and I want to respect it. Doesn't mean I've adopted it. Doesn't mean it's part of me. It doesn't mean it's mine. It's yours. Absolutely. And I want to accept and hold yours too, because they're all important. So, all right.
All right. So good
community.
Stuff. Yep. Community, environment, soft edges, shared spaces.
Yeah.
Get out there and do it.
Focus it on our environment, how it impacts our ability to curate connection and community.
And we'll come back at you next week with community and culture. So,
yeah, I'm excited.
Yes.
We'll have lots to talk about.
All right. Everyone, keep connecting.
As always, please remember, you are someone's human connection and you are never alone. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis or emergency, please call 988, 911, or a crisis response unit in your area. Disclaimer: the thoughts, opinions, and topics discussed in this podcast are not intended for mental health treatment, service, or diagnostic purposes. All opinions expressed are solely those of the host, co-host, and guests. Resources mentioned can be found in the written show notes. Thanks again for tuning in to the Human Reconnect podcast.